Hi everyone, welcome to the next live Instagram conversation with different self-employed and founders of different brands. Today I'm really excited to introduce Pri from Pri's Puddings, and we only recently met in, I think it was last September, and so I'm super excited to delve into behind the scenes with her, what it's like to run a business and get the nitty-gritty details. So thanks for joining. I'm just going to add Pri in now, but I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Hopefully it's also very useful and you guys watching. Let's see if this...
Hey Gabriella.
Hi Pri!
There we go, I can see you
Perfect.
now.
I did it for a second, I was like, I'm not really sure what I'm looking at.
Yes, I had my camera on flip, of course, that's the way I started.
Oh, believe me, I've done so much worse on these. I'm still like figuring out my background, like where to go. I have the window open, so I'm windswept. It's
all part of the experience.
Exactly. But thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited to chat to you and just delve into like real behind the scenes of running a business, what it's like as a founder, and just truths and things that we don't really see on social media as such. And I think details that just typically tend to go unseen, which,
yes,
I mean, I personally find a little bit frustrating sometimes, to be like, is it just me?
all the behind sorry about that, all the behind the scenes secrets of life as a startup.
Exactly. So I'm thrilled to have you with me and can't wait to get stuck in.
Amazing, me too.
So I was going to say, for everyone watching, if you could just give a little bit of background, what inspired you to find and start up Pri's Puddings, and just, a bit of background about the brand.
Yes, absolutely. So where do I start? It's been a long journey. So for those of you who know, we've been around for about 2.5 years since our products launched into retail and on the market. But the story sort of behind that started from so myself, I've been plant-based for over 5.5 years. That was sort of driven initially by like an ethical stance and then also environmental. And whilst I was plant-based, I also had a massive sweet tooth. And I suffered from IBS. So for those of you who don't know what IBS is, irritable bowel syndrome, it's really common. Like over 20% of people in the UK and the US have it. And I suffered from that. I was on an isolation diet and I was taking out, so I'd already taken out dairy. I then took out gluten and any high FODMAP foods. So I was on a low FODMAP diet, and I'm a massive sweet tooth. Huge sweet tooth. Like I need a dessert every single day. I used to go to the supermarket and like buy a bag of cookies. Like whilst I was before I went vegan, whilst I was at university, I'd like buy a bag of cookies and I would just eat a bag a day. Like I was a massive sweet tooth. Also not very healthy, but a massive sweet tooth. So I couldn't find anything that was really indulgent, tasted really delicious, but was made with ingredients that I could recognize. Everything had gluten and dairy in it, and it was packed with emulsifiers and preservatives and additives. So I was looking for clean label treats, so made with ingredients that I understood, that were in my kitchen cupboard, that tasted delicious. And that's where the ideas came from for our products.
Amazing. So when was it that you started that recipe development? What year was that?
That was in 2019. So I had a very small recipe blog at the end of 2018, and that kind of started to grow in 2019. And in 2019, it was around February where I came up with our pecan pie recipe, which is actually right in front of me. So it's the blue one, for those of you who know the product. So this is the one, I was craving a pecan pie and I started experimenting in the kitchen. This was the first one that we made, and then it was the chocolate, which came next, and then it was the peanut butter, which basically developed into our first product range. So they all started with the same base, so an oat sort of pie crust, and then filled with different fillings to make the different flavors. So it all just started from a kitchen sort of tabletop business.
Oh my gosh, amazing. And I love that. I always feel like I can resonate so much with where you start in your kitchen. It's a bit like, this is fun. This is
Yes.
a fun little hobby. And suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, no, business head on, let's go.
Exactly, that's it. So it's like, well, actually there were no sort of pies or tarts in the market. All healthy snacks were in the form of bars and energy balls, and none of them tasted like a sweet treat. They all tasted like a healthy snack, and they didn't satisfy that craving. So I was like, this is it. I've got to take this to market. How do we do this?
So from that point, and now 3 years later in 2022, would you say that you are where you thought you'd be when you first set it up and thought of the idea?
I think this is a really difficult one. So before this, I was working in the corporate world, a bit in food industry, food and drink industry, and I honestly thought so that industry was really fast paced. You know, decisions would be made week on week, overnight. There was sort of a lot of rapid changes going on. So I had the same expectation going into food. I was like, I'm going to set up this business, and then it's going to be really easy, and it'll be nationwide in a year. And I had all these visions, and it's not the reality of the food industry. The food industry is very slow moving. It takes 12 to 18 months at the least to develop a product to be able to get it onto market. It then can take 1 to 2 years to find a factory. Like, it actually takes a lot longer to do each of these things. And then when it comes to retailers, range reviews happen every year, so it could take years to get into big retailers, and you really have to be patient. So I'd say my visions were so different to where we are now, but it's also like, it's a good and a bad thing. Like, we have also learned a lot, and we've grown in so many different ways that I never would have otherwise expected.
Yeah, and that's such like a well balanced answer. Because
exactly. I was like, it's got to have a bit of both, like a lot of positive and a little bit of, yes, it's been tough, but there have been other achievements that we've got out of this.
And it's so true. Like, I have never thought that I'm a patient person. In fact, I'm not with some things. But then when it comes to the food industry, like you said, you have to be patient, because the range reviews, you can't chase buys. A lot of it is actually out of your control.
Exactly.
Still, even when you grow, and I'm not in a similar position to you. I would say that I admire where you are.
Thank you.
Like today, I'm like, I still need to have that patience, because otherwise, well, you can't force anyone to make a decision. And the food industry is very subjective with their tastes and what they're looking for at the time. So it's comes with different challenges.
You have to be incredibly patient, and resilience is honestly, like, that's the biggest sort of asset that you have to have. You need to be resilient, because you're going to get positive feedback and negative feedback and development points, and people telling you to, you know, wait another year because you're in the middle of a pandemic, or there'll be all sorts of things thrown at you, and you have to be resilient to each of those shocks that come your way.
Yeah, definitely. You've got to adapt to everything that comes your way.
Exactly.
So to delve into a little bit more about like right now and where we are, like kind of real time behind the scenes, could you provide us with a high and a low that you're currently facing or have faced in the past month or so?
Yes, definitely. So there's definitely bits of both. So I'll start with the low and then end with the high. That's always the right way to do it. So the low would be, and it's something that all businesses, not even just food, across industries are facing right now. There are sort of supply chain issues and supply chain constraints going across the world economy. And then there's also like inflation and price rises and fuel cost increases, electricity bills increasing, etc. There's so many different things going on at the moment, and that throws like 100 different spanners in the works. So I'd say like the struggle for us off the back of that is we've got to keep growing, and we've also got to be resilient to those shocks, whether that is like a price increase coming, or absorbing a price increase, or dealing with manufacturing and getting ingredients in on time, and then products out on time. It's all a big challenge, and it's a lot of operations to manage. And you've obviously experienced this yourself. Like, we are a small business and we all wear multiple hats. So it means that that job of operations becomes even bigger. So that's the challenge at the moment. And I could talk about it for hours, but I'm going to stop there. And then I'd say one of the wins or the highs, which I'm not going to give away too much right now. And this is one of the things where like sometimes there's a high and you can't share it until it materializes. So we've got a listing with a really exciting national retailer, which will be going live in less than 2 months. And we've known this for like the last 2 to 3 months, but we've got to keep our lips sealed. Like, nobody's allowed to know. It's silent until we start, until it goes live, which is in September.
Oh my God,
that's a win.
So exciting. Oh my God, I'm excited for you. that rush you get, even from when someone sends that email of like, yeah, we're going to take this forward. It's like, oh my God.
Like, I'm dreaming. This hasn't happened.
Totally. And then so when, in fact, that relays like quite nicely into when you get like a really positive email like that, potentially from a retailer or something, and as well as when you face a more challenging low, how do you deal with both of them? Do you have a way of like coping with, I don't know, taking a time out, or like with the successes, do you happy dance around the office? What's your go-to methods?
So I would say first dealing with the lows. Lows happen all the time, like day in, day out. You're going to get a bit of good news and you're going to get a bit of bad news. There's always something going on. Like that is the nature of business. I'd say with the lows, it's I try not to get my emotions sort of disrupted by them. So like I try to sort of stay constant. And like one thing that kind of helps me with that is, so every morning when I wake up, I try not to look at my phone. So I won't look at my phone or my emails first thing, and I'll do a very short meditation in the morning for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes if I can. I'll do that in the morning, and that helps to sort of clear my mind of everything. And I think that helps me to keep my emotions really controlled in the daytime. So like, yes, we'll get bad news, you know, every other day. Like sometimes there will be a bit of bad news that comes in, whatever it is, whether it's, oh, the ingredients haven't been delivered on time, or, you know, this order is going to be delayed, or maybe it's a listing that we wanted that we didn't get, or it's being delayed, something like that. These things happen. And I think it's really important to keep your emotions neutral. Otherwise I would have 100 days off a year and the business wouldn't work. So that's how I deal with the lows. And then I also have my outlet. So exercise is like my outlet. So I go for a run like 4 times a week, and that's what helps me to sort of like get out my energy. Like if I'm feeling down, that helps me to sort of get it out. So that's dealing with the lows. And then the highs, yeah, it's kind of what you said. It's like wherever I am, like if I'm working from home or if I'm in the office, it's like run around the office, like have a party, like go out and have a meal and celebrate. Like that's what we do. And of course, eat a lot of puddings.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like that had to be the end of the answer.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. And then, so like on that broader, I guess at the broader spectrum as well, would you say going into business, so I know you said you're from the corporate background, so I don't know if you've had like business exposure before in terms of like running business or learning more about how to manage a business, but do you think it's like the effect on, I don't know, like happiness or going out your comfort zone? Like, is it what you expected it to be like?
So the first part is like experience, and do I have experience in the business? No, I mean, I'll tell you what my background was, and you might say it's like somewhat related, but it's not related to running a business at all. So my background was I studied economics at university, and again, like it was super theoretical, it wasn't applied. We never sort of launched our own little startup as a side project. And then into the sort of corporate world, I worked in management consulting, which was business advisory largely to food and beverage customers. So like Mondelez, you know, who owns Cadbury, like they were one of our clients. Worked with AB InBev, Diageo, alcohol companies, Procter and Gamble, etc. So like really big FMCG conglomerates, which was really exciting and some great opportunities that I worked on. But it's not the same as a startup. Like even if you're working on a big FMCG company's like pricing strategy, it's not the same as doing it in a small business. Like yes, theoretically a lot of it helps, but it's not the same as running a small business. Like you need to be able to get your hands like into the dirt and do all the grunt work. And it's like, I mean, the first couple of months was me like in my home kitchen making products. Like nobody teaches you how to do that. You just need to go and learn these things, like go and learn how to get your kitchen licensed so you can produce, go and learn how to find a factory. Nobody teaches you that kind of stuff. So the business side, I think it is, you need to sort of be the kind of person who's able to put yourself into that position and then go and learn yourself, and not get tired of it. You need to be really resilient. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah. That's a great. Because what would you say is your biggest learning to date?
My biggest learning to date is that you need to be really resilient and believe in what you're doing. If you believe in what you're doing, then other people will too. If you don't and you're not resilient, then no one's going to believe you. So if you have if there's a problem that you think exists and you have a solution, whether it's like a product or a service, believe in it and then take it through, and you will succeed. It will take time and you'll need to be patient and resilient, but you will eventually succeed. If you don't believe in it yourself, you won't get anywhere.
Mm-hmm. And I think like what you said, it's so, I don't know, in fact, anyone that you talk to who is in a business or owns a business is so passionate. And as soon as you even mention like their product or something within it, a bit like you said, like inflation, we could probably talk to you about for hours.
Yeah.
It stems from what we're doing, and the passion is so alive that I think it's so nice when you see people just like light up when they talk about what they're doing. And even though it does come with its daily challenges, there's still something that if you believe in it, you are willing to take sacrifices and think, no, I'm gonna keep going because this has to work. I want to spread the mission. So it's always nice to hear that.
Exactly. It has to be purpose-led behind it. It needs to be purpose-led and mission-driven. And if it isn't, you will lose faith in whatever you're doing within months or within weeks. And if you have that purpose behind it, you'll be able to keep going, and that will keep you going through the lowest of lows. It will keep you going through the pandemics and the supply chain shocks and like Brexit and whatever else happens next.
And when you say that, because as you know, we do wear all the hats, especially at the beginning, you're doing everything. But so today, do you have a small team with you, or is it just you still?
Yeah, there's a very small team of us. So there's 5 of us on the team at the moment, and then we outsource a lot of our work as well. But when it started, the first solid year was myself alone, and I was wearing 10 different hats and doing finance and supply chain and sales and marketing and product development, all of it. Now, even though there are 5 of us and we're recruiting at the moment, so we're recruiting for three to 4 new roles, which are all live on our LinkedIn if anyone is interested. We are recruiting for roles at the moment, and even with that, we still have to wear multiple hats because we're a startup and there are so many different things to do. You can't be siloed into one function. It's all cross-functional. Everybody needs to be able to get involved in different parts of the business.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, when it then comes to passion, because you don't really want to control everything, but at the same time, everything does make a difference. So from customer satisfaction to logistics, you kind of want to have an eye just to make sure that it is up to like your standards and going smoothly. What would you say at the moment is your least favorite role in the business and your most favorite?
Oh, this is hard. This changes a lot depending on what's going on in each part of the business. Okay, what is it? So I'd say my most favorite has probably always been product development and sort of creating the recipes, which of course was all done internally. I mean, that's how the business started. That's how the recipes have been developed throughout their sort of life cycle. So product development is my favorite and probably something I don't spend enough time on. And recipe creation, that's ironic that like a lot of people start a food business because they like that part of it, but then you start a business and you don't end up spending any time on it. So that's something I'm trying to make more time for. And then my least favorite is, I don't know. I feel like, is that a good thing? That's a good thing.
Maybe it's good.
I don't know what I don't. Yeah, I don't know what I don't like. I'm looking at the products right in front of me at the moment to try and say like, is there something here that I don't like? And I can't think of anything.
I can give you an example if you want.
Yes, please.
So like I find logistics really challenging. Like if I get an email every other day saying so-and-so didn't receive this, can you check where the tracking is, or something got lost or damaged, I find that being the middleman of the courier,
that's true,
the warehouse, I find so.
Operations. You're right. You're right. Operations and like reconciliation of stock is the most boring thing ever, but it has to be done. And luckily, there were automated ways of doing it, but you kind of still have to have like your eyes on the ball. You need to know what's going on. And yes, okay, you're right. That's the most boring part, and it has to be done. Like it's so important. Otherwise, you have stock going missing, and this is a major part of it. Like there's stock goes missing, and you don't know what happens to it, and you need to try and figure it out. Yes, that is the most boring part.
And even supply chain, I find. In fact, I used to really struggle, and I still sometimes struggle that I'll be like on top of how much we have at the moment, but then I won't factor in, and it's something that I'm still trying to learn. And every time I'm like, Gabby, you can do better next time. And then it comes around, and I'm like, out of stock. How did I miss knowing that we were going to sell like X amount and I need it now, but I don't have it.
Yes.
And we have no jars in stock, and I'm like, oh my gosh, so I need to now wait 2 weeks for the jars and the product. And I'm like, oh my God, I've ruined it.
There's so many different parts to it, right? There's so many different parts that could cause a delay in your supply chain. I remember when Brexit happened, so it was just as soon as Brexit happened, and we had sorted out like all of our paperwork, and we're ready to go. You know, we're still working with our German customers. Don't worry, your pallets are coming. They'll be on their way. And then everything gets stopped at customs, and literally it was months where like products were stopped at customs, and they were asking for all this paperwork, and we were so ready, like we had everything ready, and you just couldn't do anything about it. Like it was just products being stopped everywhere across the board, and there were queues going across the borderline, and it was a total nightmare. And these things happen, and you can't do anything about it. So yes, supply chain and logistics are the worst.
Yeah, very challenging. And as you mentioned that you have like currently got like a little team, going from being employed to now managing other people, how have you found that shift? What's the balance like?
So it's different. I'd say so. When I was in the corporate world, I had like smaller teams. Like as I sort of went more senior, that I had sort of smaller teams of people that I managed. So I'd done it before. But I think one really important thing that I wanted to bring to the bit, well, the first part is you actually have to set up the foundations of how the business functions and like what those sort of HR operations are. So that's the complexity. But one thing that was really important to me when like building a team was that there is no hierarchy, and it's like fully transparent, and people are respected with their own ways of working. So that's fully how we work. Like we often work remotely, like we have an office and we're based in Camden Town. That's where I am today. But actually a lot of the week people can work from wherever they want. They can work from home. So sometimes we do like a day in the office and a day out in town doing whatever you need to do. I might be visiting the factory, team might be out visiting stores or creating marketing content, and then maybe we do 3 days at home, and we have a very flexible working culture. And that's something that was so important to me. Like I want people to be happy in their job and to enjoy what they do, and everyone does. Everyone comes to work with a smile on their face, and everyone's sort of happy and passionate about what they're doing. That was the most important thing, because we spend 80% of our lives working, and what's the point if you're going to be going into work and unhappy about it every day? So that was the most important part. Everyone needs to be happy. And of course, having dessert in front of you all day helps.
And I'm kind of like, can I apply to the job?
We would love to have you.
Thank you.
Speaking of which, we actually have your nut butters in our office, and like we dip our pop squares into the nut butters.
Oh,
really good.
I love that. And I also can imagine like anything dunked. I'm like, yes, just
yes. Best combination. Got to try it.
Definitely. I'm like you. After dinner, I always need something, and my go-to is always like chocolate dunked in nut butter, or just like something in. I'm like, I need whatever. Yeah. It comes with nut butter. I mean, that's just a non-negotiable. Our best customers, I love it.
Amazing.
And I was gonna say, so you touched perfectly on how your team is like all about happiness. The culture is about having a smile on your face. Would you say to date, when you look back, running a business makes you happy?
Yes, definitely. Like so some of my friends ask me like, how much do you work? And I never classify it as work. Like it's a passion project and it's a hobby too. So yes, if I'm doing work on the weekend, it doesn't feel like work. I'm happy about what I do, and it's sort of mission driven and it's purpose led. So yes, I'm happy. Like even if there have been times where I've been up working late, but it doesn't feel like work because it's something that we're driving to achieve. Mm-hmm. So yes, I'm happy.
Great, I was say, love that. A bit worried actually, because I was like, if you'd said no, I would have been like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I now need to turn this into a.
You don't know if you're prepared to manage that and have a therapy session.
And then, so within the food industry, I feel like I personally see a lot on social media, and well, I think it's subjective to everyone, but sometimes I do have that tendency of comparing and thinking, I'm not there, or I'm not doing enough, or they're doing something that maybe I should be doing. Would you say that you've seen or still see any myths in running a business that sometimes make you question maybe your work ethic or something within your business?
I think it's a really tough one, looking at what other people are doing. And I think it's something that what we try to do is, it's really important to stay vigilant of like, what are your competitors doing? What are the big players in the market doing? You know, are they doing what we're doing? Because of course that's concerning. But we try not to look sideways too much, because when we do, then we lose focus of what we're doing. And yes, it would get you down. Yes, of course, if, you know, X other brand is, you know, miles ahead of you, that's going to happen. That's the nature of the game. And you've got to keep your eyes on what you're doing and what your mission is and what your purpose is. It's a competitive market, and if you do that, you'll sort of never succeed, because you'll always be brought down. So that's my sort of first stance on it. I'd say like the second part is, okay, so on social media, everyone highlights the successes and nobody really talks about the failures. And yes, I think there's like a huge, there's a huge dangerous element of that, because that does impact people's mental health, because people only see the good sides of everyone else's life. But equally, if people were sharing the dark side, nobody would be engaging on social media, right? Because people go onto social media for a distraction to sort of shift their trail of thought from whatever else is going on in their life. They want that distraction. I think as a founder, it's important for us to be able to showcase both sides, but kind of with a pinch of salt on both sides. So we don't shout about all of our wins, and some of them we keep silent. And then we also talk about the ups and downs. So like every now and then we'll do a post and we'll say, this is what's been going on behind the scenes. Or during the pandemic, we said like, it has been a really challenging time. It has been really tough. And we have an audience there to resonate with us.
Mm-hmm. And it is true. I think sometimes the more you share about like the lows, people, yeah, they want a bit of a distraction. But I think also, like you said, equally for founders, it is important to start that conversation. And a bit like why I love these conversations, because it's also just being really truthful and maybe having others resonate with what we're going through. Because if you sometimes don't see something, you kind of think, is it just me? Like, am I the only one that's maybe struggling with this or finding supply chain really difficult? When talking about it sometimes is like the best way. But like you said, on social media now, it has got that highlight of success and everything is happy and positive to make us all feel better about how we're living our lives. It's
totally.
It can go both ways.
And I think like probably something which we should all do, and I try to do it sometimes, and I should probably do it more, is like just turn off my social media for the last like 2 hours before I go to bed and not have that in my mind before I go to bed. And sometimes I try to do that and I feel so much better and I wake up feeling more positive, because you're not looking at what everyone else is doing. And it's not just looking at sort of like big brands and what they're doing, but it's talking about like, you know, influencers, celebrities, what are they doing with their lives? And the more we watch that, the more we sort of feel almost like we're not doing as much as we can be doing, or they're living a greater life than us, but really we don't know anything behind the scenes. So yes, there is like an unhealthy element of social media, and that's where like it's good as a form of entertainment. You know, we have Netflix, also entertainment, but it's also good to be able to switch off from that and to, you know, have a timer on your phone to say, you know, I'm only going to spend 1 hour on social media today, not 3 hours scrolling before bed.
I've actually got mine set at 45 minutes a day.
Very good.
Whenever I have the lives, I always forget. So it comes up halfway through and I'm like, no. So I now like
to go.
I've gone the opposite way. But I think also what you're saying, like there is that risk with social media of it. I don't know. I feel like everything, you don't know how people are going to respond. And I think even with like a product-led business and also on social media now, you never know what way it's going to go. And sometimes like I'm guilty of making a post and thinking I'm going to post this, and it is maybe a bit more personal about like the now behind the scenes. And then I shy away because I think, what if we lose followers? What if people they're not attracted to that? And we are a nut butter. Do you mean that there's so much more to it sometimes?
Yes.
And it's
definitely
hard, like when you take that risk and think this could actually pay off and attract more people who are thinking, actually that really resonates with me. It's a hard one to know.
Totally, because it's real content, it's the true behind the scenes, and then it's a case of, do people want to hear about that? Do people want to hear about the real ins and outs of business and the real struggles? And then there's obviously the perception of, do people want to hear almost like negativity? So it's kind of getting a balance of the two, and where is the right amount of information to share. And I'd be interested to know like what people think of that, and how that, I guess, how people interact with that on social media.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. I always think I'm going to post it and then I like ease myself in, and then sometimes I'll hold back on this one, delete that from later.
Yes, exactly. But I am definitely pro sort of saying we should be able to share those experiences. And then there's taking it with a pinch of salt and saying, what impact is that going to have on customers, on whether it depends on who your audience is, right? Like you've got customers, you've got retailers as well. What do you want people to see? What do you not want them to see? And do we need to showcase our whole lives? No, we shouldn't do that. We should be drawing the line at some point, right? And it's important to be able to detach part of our lives from social media. So that's what I do. I try not to put anything to do with my personal life on social media, because it shouldn't be about that. It's about the brands and the product that we're selling and what we're trying to do with that.
Yeah. No, definitely. I completely agree. And so when you were making the product in your kitchen, take us back to 2019, and you thought, right, this is it, I'm going to set up a business. In just one sentence, what was your idea at the time of success? What would success have looked like to you in 2019?
So the me in 2019 who was hand making products, so the pies were literally made in like the palm of my hand, and a little mold, so just pushing pies with a thumb, and a bunch of my friends and family got involved. That was the business then. Success to me looked like being in national retailers in the UK. That's where I thought we'd be, because I thought that's where we're going to have the biggest impact. That's where people are going to be consuming better for you plant-based alternatives to traditional confectionery and traditional bakery. That's what success looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So that was me back in 2019. And I still think we're work in progress. We're not there yet.
Because I was going to say, that was going to be my next question. So let's say now we stripped everything away from social media, no highlight reel of success. Do you feel successful in where you are now?
It's a difficult question. There's two sides to the question, but I think, and you'll resonate with this, as a founder, you never feel like you've achieved that success.
Mm-hmm.
You always feel like there is more to do. There is more of an impact on the world that you can have, and there's no ceiling. So you almost never feel like you've gotten there. So that's one perspective to say. There are a couple of national retailers we're in, and there'll be another one in September, but it still doesn't feel like we're there yet. But then the other side we need to look at is we need to be so grateful for where we are today. We are in, over 800 or 900 different stores in the UK, or stockists in the UK, and then we're also exporting to like multiple different markets. And actually that's pretty successful. And I didn't think we'd be doing any of that. So there's also that to look at and say, actually, we have achieved a certain amount, and we've got to be grateful that we've gotten that far through what's been a crazy couple of years. But we're work in progress, we're a small business, and there's still so much more to achieve.
And honestly, I say this like from the bottom of my heart, if I could be with our nut butters like where you are, oh my gosh, I would be so much happier.
Thank you, that's very
where you are. I think your positioning of the business now, I just think incredible. I think it but again, I'm seeing it from the outside, so I know that's thought is not always the same when you're inside.
Yeah, definitely. And it's always, I'm really flattered by that, so thank you for that. But I think it is always that thing of you get to that point and then you're like, but there's so much more we could be doing. And that's like the founder mindset of like, you're driven to ensure that you continue to do good in what you're doing in your mission, right? You're still trying to achieve more in whatever that mission is, and that's us, and that's also you. So even when you get there, you'll say, but there's another 1 million people that we can reach. So what about those 1 million people? Because that's going to have X positive impact on the planet, etc.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I heard the most humbling thing a few weeks ago, where I was with my friend and I was just saying how it is. Business is difficult. I always go through these ups and downs, and at the moment I do work alone, so for me I literally have like battles in my head of like where to go and what to do.
I know the feeling.
What's the right thing and all of that. And she just turned to me and she was like, when you first thought of this idea and you set up the business, your idea, your mission was literally to spread the energy and the feel good feeling that you got with these nut butters to other people. She was like, technically you have done that. You've gone to the market.
True.
If you stopped now, she was like, you have literally sold it to other people and you have shared the same feeling you had. And I was like, oh my God, that's so, I was like, that's
mission fulfilled. You're already there. No, it's so true. Like, you are already doing that. So what we shouldn't keep on expecting more of ourselves, because you're already there, you're already doing that, and you're having that positive impact.
Yeah, and like you said, it's never enough when you're the founder, because you just want more and more and more, because you do, your ambitions grow as well, and you get more passionate and you believe in it more when other people believe in it. But it is actually true that when I think I speak for a lot of founders, when your main sole purpose is just to get it in the hands of others because you just want them to enjoy it as much as you. And from all of our standpoints, we are doing that. Even if you stop tomorrow, you kind of have been successful in what you wanted to set out and do. And I find that, I don't know, I always come back.
I love that perspective. I love it. You're right. And I think there's always a sense of I haven't achieved enough, and you're taking that away by saying that, because you are already fulfilling the purpose of what you set out to achieve. Yeah, and it's true. Every day I'm always like, not achieved enough. I need to do more. There's always more to do. Now there's a new app on the street, and I've got to get on that. The never-ending to-do list. Never-ending to-do
fabulous. I love that. Yes, but ticking it off is satisfying.
Yes, definitely.
And then, so I know we've touched on this a little bit, but just as a final question, do you have any really nitty gritty, truthful words of advice for anyone who is potentially just starting out or in a position where they're just finding it quite challenging to know where to go forward? What would be your biggest words of advice?
So within food specifically, my biggest, or generally, I guess in business, my biggest word of advice would be, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Does this problem really exist? And is it a large problem? So like, what's the size of that problem? I.e., how many people are being impacted by that? And then what is the size of your opportunity specifically? So there's this problem you want to solve, there's a market of people, and then what's the size of the opportunity for you within there? Does it really exist? Like, really ask yourself that question. And I mean, don't even just ask yourself, like, go and do the research. Does the problem exist? And if it does, is your solution going to be the one thing that's going to solve it? And that will tell you if customers are going to come and buy your product or service. That would probably be my biggest word of advice. And then once you have that and you're like 100% sure that that's the case, then you've got to persist and you've got to be so resilient, because it's a really long game and you've got to be 100%, 101% committed to it.
Has your resilience ever dipped? Have you ever thought, enough, I can't do this anymore? Or have you always stayed that motivated?
I think it probably sounds a little bit crazy, but for people who know me, I'm someone who, like, even if I go low, like, I'm like, no, we're going to do this. We're going to keep doing this, and I'll keep on fighting. Like, I'm so persistent, and my mind is always in that sort of positive mindset of, okay, you know, we fell down once, but we're going to get up and we're going to keep going. And my mindset's always been like that. Like, I don't believe in, I mean, failures do happen, but you can still succeed after you fail. Yeah. So yes, I would say I'm also human. I thought I can be set back by things that happen, but like, I will continue to persist because I believe in the mission that we're trying to solve.
I love that. And I think that is such a good advice, because you have to really stick with it and believe in it. And as we said at the beginning of this, you take away so many learnings that even if you, like, I've spoken to people who've had, this is their second business that they're doing, and they just knew when to stop. And they're like, but it wasn't a failure because we learned so much from that.
Yes.
This new one. But even though I say that, because I do understand that's easier said than done, when you're actually in the midst of thinking, is this right? That is really challenging to sit with, because that's a horrible feeling to think it's not worked. But hopefully they can like work through it and see that it is actually, it's still something, you can still turn it around. And you have got to be resilient. It's one of those things, you've got to be patient, got to be resilient. So I think that's
it. And actually a really good podcast is How to Fail by Elizabeth Day, where there are so many people who are success stories, or some of those who are not, but actually they really sort of honestly speak about failures in business, and it's happened to so many people, and actually they're not talked about enough. So that's a really great podcast to sort of listen to the lows and the pitfalls of entrepreneurs, and some who have then made it after that, or they've learned from it. And I think talking about that is really important, because people are able to learn from it, right? Founders such as ourselves are able to go and listen to them and say, okay, so I'm not the only one in this position. It has happened before.
Definitely. And I think that's what I really appreciate you joining me today, because I think it's such an important conversation, just to give a bit of insight into what it is really like to run a business. Because I think some people just, well, you don't always see it, and I think it's nice to be able to put the face behind the brand as well, and just talk about the highs, the lows, and what's going on right now, instead of like reflecting. So I think I've really enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it too.
I have, absolutely. Thank you for inviting me to chat today. And yeah, it was really important to talk about those topics, and I think people want to hear about it. They want to know what's going on behind the scenes. So thank you for inviting me today.
Not at all, and I hope it's resonated and inspired all of the viewers.
Yes.
So thank you again, and yeah, can't wait to catch up soon.
Likewise, thanks so much. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.